From 1978 to our current date, 140 people have been exonerated from death row. Millions of dollars are spent out of our pockets annually to keep inmates on death row. The death penalty in America should be illegal due to flawed cases, financial reasons, and the length of time it takes to sentence inmates to death. There have been thousands of prisoners on death row, but how many were actually guilty for their crimes? According to the Death Penalty Information Center, there have been over a dozen cases where prisoners on death row have been killed and then found innocent after their death. For example, Cameron Willingham, 2004, was sentenced to death for setting his own home on fire and killing his children inside. After he was executed, investigators found that the evidence was flawed and the fire was accidental. The point is that the man was executed and sentenced before the prosecutors were 100% sure he was guilty. Also, Gary Graham, a man convicted of robbery and first-degree murder, was trialed and sentenced to death. His sentence was only based on one witness who claimed they were almost sure it was him who committed the crime. They saw him 40 feet away in a car driving away. The trial was based off of no official evidence, and after he was executed, 3 of the jurors stated that they would have voted differently on his case. Governor H. Ryan states, "So fraught with error that it has come close to the ultimate nightmare, the state's taking of an innocent life." For example, in 2000, the courts in New Jersey show that those on death row, 13 of them were exonerated because of DNA tests. One who is in prison in life can be reversed, but a death cannot. Center on Wrongful Conviction of Northwestern Law Enforcement came to conclusion that out of 86 prisoners that were exonerated from death row, 45 of them out of those people's sentences were based only from eyewitnesses and no other official evidence. Courts should know 100% if one who is being charged is guilty, either being sentenced to death or being sentenced in general. Courts have been sentenced hundreds of prisoners on death row, and a lot of them aren't even guilty to begin with. Official evidence should be shown in the first place sentencing prisoners. If they are not for sure to begin with a trial, if they are not for sure to begin with, a trial shouldn't even be happening. Thousands are affected by this. Studies show that from Grant McClellan, the states with the fewest murders in the 2000s, the study of 10 states, that 4 out of those states studied who do not have the death penalty. Another study on other 10 states, his studies show that 10 of those states that were studied, the highest murder rates were all from those states that had the death penalty. The costs for the death penalty are another reason why it should be abolished. According to the Commission on the Fair Administration of Justice, in the state of California, it costs an extra $90,000 per inmate who is on death row because of segregated sections they need to be put in, individual cells, and guards delivering their necessities just for them to their cell. Out of 670 of those inmates in California, the total adds up to around $68.3 million annually, which almost all of it is paid by the citizens of California in taxes. Governor of California Arnold Schwarzenegger increased taxes just so that hole that is taken out by the money can be filled by those who pay for those on death row. If the death penalty was illegal in California, $1 billion would be saved over the next 5 years. Their studies also prove that in our country, $4 billion are spent because of prisoners on death row, rather than giving them a life sentence with no parole. It costs 10 times more to It costs 10 times more to kill than to keep alive. It costs 10 times more to kill than to keep alive, states former Judge Donald McCartan. The length of time it takes to sentence one to death is an average of 20 years. Former Judge Donald McCartan also stated that 9 of the people who he sentenced to death that he had trialed, only one of them died, which was due to a heart attack while they were on trial. He also states the only thing it does is prolong the agony of victims' families, which is also true. Sentencing the person who is guilty to the death only brings up fresh wounds to the family of the victims. They will never be able to cope with the past. So, in conclusion, the death penalty should be illegal in the United States because of false accusations, money, and the time it takes to sentence one to death. Those against the death penalty need to speak their opinions more loudly, and maybe one day America will listen. Thank you. Are there any questions? Bean is asking, where did you get your information from? Well, Bean, I got most of my information from a website called deathpenaltyinfo.org. There'll be citations in the bottom of this video. Are there any other questions?
Why should someone deserve to live where they should deserve death for their actions?
Well, one of the points I was talking about is about money and how it costs more to kill someone than to make them be alive. And also, behind my reasoning, I didn't state this in my speech, but my opinion is that I think if there is a murderer in prison, I don't think that they should deserve to die. I think they should deserve to suffer in prison for life and think about their actions instead. Because I think someone would rather die than spend their whole life in prison in a cell by themselves. So I think they just suffer more and realize what they did by serving their time for life in jail in a cell by themselves.